possible solution to some of the problems that you might encounter with the MIDI Guitar 2 software. The two most annoying problems in my view are minor second interval, that you get these annoying oscillations between the notes, and the other thing is the big chords restriction on, say, chordal work with the chords larger than 3 notes. This is my standard setup for working in Ableton. I have an audio track here. On that one I have the MIDI Guitar 2 software usually, and I have band range enabled and off touch enabled as always, and these settings are the standard. Here I have a polyphonic tracking type, so I can track chords and more notes than one at a time. But then we come to those intervals that you all know about. This is the minor second. You can't get that to work with this. And the same thing I would say with bigger chords. You have those annoying extra notes or flutterings or whatever. The thing I'm talking about now is this little device here. You have it's the Boss GP-10. It has with it some MIDI conversion as well, but that's not what I'm looking for here. The thing that's interesting with this device now is that it actually sends out 8 channels of audio to my DAW. My DAW preference here is obviously Ableton, since it's the easiest way to route the incoming audio and MIDI for my smaller projects. In this case I have my old standard setup with the Focusrite Scarlett 2-in 4-out audio interface. Let's go over to the setup where I have the Boss GP-10 setup as well. And while that is loading, I can go over this one. This is a Parker radial fly, I think they call it. And as you can see right here, I have a sustain jack on it, so I have this added sustain options. Obviously Agent Blue was the inspiration for this guitar, and I also have the Hex pickup installed on it. It picks up on every string individually, and I also will have one instance of MIDI guitar per track per string. So I have 6 MIDI guitar softwares open simultaneously. They will track monophonically, so they will track each string individually. I have a monophonic tracking here. I have bands enabled and I have off the touch enabled, and this is because I'm gonna play with some of those swam instruments that I normally use. The thing that is different from the usual setup is that it's a monophonic tracking type, and this is because I'm only gonna use this per string. So I will have a sound coming out of each channel as soon as I'll connect 13 pin going into the GP-10. Straight out of the GP-10 via USB it goes into the computer, and I should have 6 separate channels. I also without any problems I'm able to play stuff like the minor second, of course. With this setup, it's not super fast. It's not like it's faster latency wise, but it's the details in this one are unbelievable. I mean, in this setup, since everything you play will be picked up on in a way that isn't guaranteed with the polyphonic tracking. And it's not that it's this pickup that's so much better, because it's really not. It's quality wise, I would say it's the MIDI Guitar 2 software is probably not made for the sound that is coming out of this pickup. This is more like a piezo or piezo pickup sound when you listen to it in the computer. And I think the MIDI Guitar 2 software is adjusted for a slightly warmer sound with some other properties, but it's so nice to play with. I mean, you can have now you've heard these big chords are not a problem. Minor second interval is not a problem. Another thing that is so nice to work with is the thing I'm looking forward to with MIDI Guitar 3. That is the way that we can work with the bends within a chord now, since all the strings are separate. I can keep one note relatively still while I'm bending on another note, and I can take this example with. Now I'm vibrating the whole guitar, of course. But you can imagine the possibilities for orchestrating or for instant composing. So this is, as I told you before, this is 6 instances of the same alto sax here on 6 separate software tracks. I also have, of course, 6 separate audio tracks for those monophonic versions of the MIDI Guitar 2 software. And if you listen to the details in these kind of chordal works, I've problems seeing what other setup can actually deliver this kind of specificity on the, say, vibrato. I mean, you can use a Roley C-board, for instance, vibrating on one note while perhaps moving around. But for us guitar players, I mean, we have the vibrato we always have that with us as we play. Then, is there any downsides to this setup? Something happens to the dynamics. I'll show you here with an instance of Falcon, so you hear differences as to the previous version of Falcon that I played. Here you can hear, obviously that's the same interval that wasn't playable with the polyphonic setup. It's playable now without any problems. Same things with however big chords you can play. No problems there. But I find it lacking in dynamics when, and I think this is a thing with Ableton summing up these 6 MIDI signals coming in to one single instrument, because it's not as obvious once you funnel every separate channel of incoming MIDI to a separate instrument, or as I've done, and I'll show you that as well, with if you use the MIDI Guitar 2 software and open the instrument within it, and then the only thing you have open is 6 audio tracks with the instance of an instrument in it. If you use the same instrument in all the 6, you have the same setup as I have here. But it's when you move to one instrument and get these 6 to converge, I feel it's like it's lacking in dynamics. I don't get the same punch as I do with the setup having only one instance of MIDI Guitar 2 set up with polyphonic tracking. But if I'm gonna use like big band, or say like here I'm playing with full orchestra of alto saxes, I have 6 alto saxes and a piano with that, it's not a problem. I'm happy enough with having the opportunity to even play like this. I've set up my GP-10 with my audio interface now, with my Scarlett, Focusrite Scarlett interface. We go into preferences here in Ableton and we look at audio. I'll have something of a compound audio interface device that's called Scarlett and GP-10. So the Mac allows for us to make our own compound interfaces, and it's quite easy actually. Your standard, this is your standard setup. Of course, I have my Scarlett 2 in 4 out USB audio interface here. I have the GP-10 here, and you see that it says 8 in 8 out on that one. And it's not harder than clicking the plus sign down here, create a new unit, click on the units that you use together, and they'll pop up after restart, of course, as in the preferences, as a choice in the preferences to use for your DAW. So I'm going to use this setup where I have the GP-10 and the Scarlett interface side by side all the time. So whenever I want to use this 13-pin setup specifically, I'll just connect my guitar to this to the GP-10 and use that way of recording. just as with the alto sax before. It's 1 channel per string here, but here's only 6 audio channels. This is what I would guess the easiest setup is. I have 1 instance of MIDI guitar on each channel, and I pull up, in this case, the Swam tenor sax here on in the instrument slot. I have band range enabled. It's monophonic tracking type. And if I click on this one, you'll see like it's not like it's a slow setup, and if you're interested in how is it possible to play along to stuff with this, if I open up another audio track here and it's really not that hard to play along with stuff anyway. So it's, as with all pitch to MIDI, it's some latency still left. I don't think it's more than using the polyphonic tracking, playing 1 instrument. In this case, you get the whole ensemble of the whole tenor sax ensemble if you want to do some orchestration stuff and stuff like yeah, if you want to do stuff like that. I'll make a MIDI track here on the end, so let's see if you can see that as well. I'll take all the MIDI from the breath controller. That's the first option for me here. And I'll send that to, we have an option MIDI 2 here, down here. I'll send that to the 3 audio channel. This is the way to send 3 audio. You see that here. This is the way to send MIDI to an audio channel in Ableton. So as soon as I arm this channel, of course, you see that it reacts to me, at least blowing in this one. And then I have MIDI coming into this channel as well, or it should be. Let's see if that's a correct assumption. So I'm going into MIDI mapping table again, expression, learn. Yeah, now you see it reacting to my breathing into it. So now it's learned that I want to use the breath controller for that particular, in this case, that particular string. Okay, so what use is it to have control over 1 string? You can do exactly the same thing for all strings. And then you'll have 6 MIDI channels here all with MIDI from breath controller, but with separate outputs. Like it's going to 3 audio, that's the name of the channel right now, and it will be 4 audio and 5 audio as well. And then you'll have to do the same setup. But I mean, it could very well be enough to have the breath controller controlling one string, so you have like an ensemble working behind it, and do stuff like improvise with only the dynamic difference on, say, the high E string. This is somewhat up to your imagination to what you want to do with it, but it's I'm showing you a possibility to control even this kind of basic setup with only audio tracks with the instrument loaded within the MIDI Guitar 2 software. You can get external MIDI to go into this plugin as well. So now I'll show you the bigger setup if it's possible. Let's see. This is the alto sax breath controller setup. If it's possible. Let's see. This is the alto sax breath controller setup. This is a lot of fun for us that like working with microtonal stuff as well. I mean, here you have all those possibilities that you would have with like the Sansel touch plate and or the Rolly Seaboard or stuff like this. This is what I'm expecting from MIDI Guitar 3 in the quite near future, I would hope. So any questions you might have, and I guess you might have some, put them in the comment section below, and I'll try and answer them as soon as I can. For those of you that have this Boss GP-10 just lying around and is interested in the MIDI guitar setup to begin with, this is the perfect opportunity to get it out of the cupboards and actually get it to use. So congratulations, and I'll see you. Bye.